guys, John V from PhoneArena here. You're watching our video comparison between the iPad Air 2 and the iPad Mini 3. Naturally, there are plenty of tablets to select from for this upcoming holiday season, but if you like what Apple's doing, you should know that there are two models available again this year. You have the iPad Mini 3 and its bigger sibling in the iPad Air 2. Now, consumers are going to look in the stores, check them both out, see the difference in pricing, but ultimately they just want to know which ones should they choose. And looking at the two, the designs are iconic and they don't differentiate much. They have the same construction, very sturdy, comprised out of that brushed aluminum casing. But the iPad Mini 3's design is actually recycled from its predecessor. Nothing really new about it. Whereas with the iPad Air 2, they've shed off a little bit more to its profile, so it's incredibly thin. It's pretty lightweight too. The obvious difference here boils down to just size. Seeing that they have nearly identical designs, the button placements and ports are identical too, with the exception with the iPad Mini 3. It has the mute switch right there, whereas it's now omitted with the iPad Air 2. At the same time, they also feature things like their lightning docking ports, their speaker grills, and also the Touch ID fingerprint sensor. Interestingly enough, they share the same resolution with their displays, 24:8 by 1536 pixels. They're both very detailed and crisp, and it's really hard to notice the superiority on paper with the iPad Mini 3's display. But the iPad Air 2 has better qualities. First of all, it's fully laminated, it has a stronger brightness output so it's more visible outdoors, and has accurate color reproduction. Well, this certainly isn't a shocker. They're both running iOS 8.1, the most up-to-date version of the platform, so the experiences on both tablets are identical. From their presentation, functionality, features, nothing is different about them. The only thing here is just the real estate that we have to work with the iPad Air 2, and that proves to be beneficial in a host of areas. For example, for productivity, if you're going to be using the tablet for a lot of typing or editing documents, surfing the web, or even watching videos, the iPad Air 2 just presents itself as the more ideal tablet for the experience. What's interesting here is that the iPad Mini 3 is powered by the same processor used by the iPad Mini 2, a dual-core Apple A7 chip based on 64-bit architecture with 1GB of RAM, versus the iPad Air 2, which is greeted with newer hardware. It has the triple-core 1.5 GHz Apple A8X processor with 2GB of RAM. Now, for basic things like navigating through the UI, they're pretty much identical to performances, but you see a big jump, a big disparity when it comes to gaming performance. It's just significantly better with the iPad Air 2. We honestly can't complain about the web browsing experience with the two, just because you have fast page loads, you have really quick page rendering, and smooth navigational controls. The only difference here is just the real estate we have to work with. That's why we prefer the iPad Air 2 for this one. Since they're both running iOS 8.1, the music players are also identical, nothing different about them. As far as the audio quality from the respective speakers, the iPad Air 2 speaker is definitely stronger in output, but it's not bad either with the iPad Mini 3. Also strong, but it's lacking with the bass. When it comes to watching videos, they're both fantastic with their performances, but we just prefer the iPad Air 2 for the mere fact that the screen's brighter, it has better visibility, and on top of that, it's larger, which is again better for the experience. The iPad Mini 3 is not bad when it comes to taking photos. It's good, but not as good as the iPad Air 2. The difference here is just the smidgen more detail we get out of the iPad Air 2's camera. And under lower lighting conditions, the iPad Air 2 shots are just less noisy. When it comes to 1080p video recording quality, the two are pretty good, but again, the iPad Air 2 proves to be more favorable. The iPad Mini 3 just has a tougher time properly focusing in the shot, and on top of that, the iPad Air 2 just does a better job when it comes to adjusting its exposure on the fly. Bigger battery, longer battery life. That's naturally the outcome here between these two, as the iPad Air 2's larger battery is more long-lasting than that of the iPad Mini 3. In our own battery benchmark test, the iPad Air 2 reaches a mark of 7 hours and 20 minutes, while the iPad Mini 3 chimes in at a decent 6 hours and 53 minutes. So now that brings us to pricing. It's going to be $400 for the iPad mini 3 and $500 for the iPad Air 2. Now that $100 difference might be substantial for some people, but honestly, there's no question which one you should pick up. The iPad Air 2, for the mere fact that it is the more impressive tablet and it's outfitted with all the upgrades you'd expect in a successive device. Whereas the iPad mini 3, the only thing new about it compared to the older model is that it's sporting that Touch ID fingerprint sensor. Beyond that, it's really tough to say that it's worth the investment picking it up. So stick with the iPad Air 2 unless you really like the size of the iPad mini 3. So if you guys want to learn more about either tablet, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.